From the studios of the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, welcome to Next Level Thinking. Here are your hosts, Team APAP. Say Martin.
Hello and welcome to Next Level Thinking with your psychologist from APAP SXM. My name is Stephanie Hassett and I'm here together with
Sanne Gruiters
and Caroline van Oost.
This program has been made possible by the Ministry of Public Health and DCOM. And this program highlights topics that help you deal with the subject that matters the most, ourselves. Today we will introduce to you stress in adults. What is stress exactly?
Well, when you're overloaded with a lot of demands, you're struggling with that, you get a feeling that is called stress.
Yeah, we have to deal with that in life, and it's all about the struggles that we face. It could be financial problems or relational problems, physical problems, work-related problems, or your house, or what about hurricane stress?
That is actually a topic that we'll come back to in another episode of Next Level Thinking.
Interesting.
All right. So besides the major problems in life, we have that daily stress can make or break your day. For example, you can have a flat tire.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Exactly. Losing your wallet happens to me sometimes. Locking yourself out of your house.
Yep. Hey, but what about that plastic grocery bag? You know, when it breaks, all the oranges rolling down the street.
Yeah.
That case, it should remind you to bring a reusable linen bag.
Yeah, that might work better, yeah. But
Exactly.
You know that feeling where everything goes wrong that day, and that gives you stress. So that's stress, right?
That is stress, indeed.
Exactly. So just the feeling that, everything's going wrong. You're feeling like the things are not going the way they're supposed to do, and it adds just a certain pressure to you, and which makes you feel stressed out.
Yeah, and when you are stressed out, there are some simple stressors in your environment, like noises, aggressive behavior of other people, a speeding car, maybe scary movies, or even a first date. The more stresses we experience, the more stress we tend to feel.
Right. And I guess it comes in many different ways, in different situations. And every person deals with stress in their own way. Not everyone experiences it in the same way. I mean, going on a first date, some might feel butterflies, others might feel a headache, lightheaded or something. So everyone experiences that differently.
Yeah, in different ways you can experience it, but is everything then negative concerning stress?
Not everything is negative. Some experience actually that are positive activities, but like the date, but also like having a baby. It is a positive experience, like getting the baby, but having the baby can of course lead to a lot of stress. But moving to a nicer house, being promoted, these activities, these things in life, they bring a major change. And a major change in life needs some extra effort. You need to put in new responsibilities. You need to adapt to a new situation. It's just steps into the unknown. And that can lead to some stress.
Right. So it can be a good thing. It can be a good change. But still that change would give us some stress because it's something that we have to adapt. We'll have to change our routine. We'll have to figure out new things. How are we going to plan and organize this new situation? And how are we going to deal with it? So all those insecurities and uncertainties might make us experience stress.
Yeah, so it's the negative situations that could lead to stress. It's positive situations that can lead to stress. But then still, stress can also be a motivator. So stress actually is not a negative result of experiences. We need stress in a certain way.
Yeah, in a sense, I think stress is also, you can see it as fuel. You need it to get moving, to get into action. So it can be positive. And if you have too much fuel, you overflow and then it becomes negative. What do you think?
I think so, exactly. I know that I need a deadline, for example, to work harder, to have that pressure of knowing that I need to finish something on time. It stresses me out to have a deadline. I'm like, oh gosh, and I'm not going to make it, and I have so much things to do. But when I have that deadline, I know it's a motivator. I know it makes me work harder and makes me go faster, and eventually I'll get it done. So I guess that is a good way of being stressed out and having that pressure, definitely.
And actually, there is a biological part in stress, of course, as well. And it goes way back in a fight or flight mechanism. Maybe someone heard of that. Caroline, is that something you can explain?
Yeah, that's the biological part, and it's in our system. So it helps us to survive. Actually, it's essential to survive. And stress is the body's natural defense against predators and danger. Like years ago, when people went to get food and had to hunt for it, and then you could get in eye contact with a predator, for example, and then stress makes sure that you run away or that you become very aggressive so you can defend yourself, and some moments even that you freeze. So that has to do with all the hormones in our body that triggers those like increased heart rate, heightened muscle preparedness, sweating and alertness to get you ready to survive.
It's something you can see in daily life as well. I hope it will not happen every day, but we hear on the news and we see in movies, for example, a robbery. I think we all know that there are different persons reacting in a different way to a stressor of a robber. You can see people that are going to hide behind the desk, people running away, some people attacking the robber. But there are also persons that will stand in the middle of the room and just freeze because they don't know what to do or their body is just not reacting anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm a person that freezes. I'm like, oh gosh, what happens? And I just stop thinking, which is the best response. But yeah.
That's it. You stop thinking.
Exactly.
So it's not something you do very consciously. It's something that your body does, your system does.
Right.
But when you are in danger, you don't even have the time to think.
Right.
So that is how our body functions. When you don't have the time to think about the situation, you have to react. So in that sense, the stress is your survival mode because it makes you able to respond very quickly to the situation.
And accordingly to the situation, I think. I mean, if I would see a bear and maybe freeze is the best thing to do at that moment and then hope that he doesn't see me.
Yeah.
And in another situation, the best response would be to run.
Yeah.
So exactly, our body prepares us to do the right thing very fast. We don't have time to overthink and to analyze and to weigh our options. We need to respond and respond right away.
But of course, experiencing too much stress in a chronic way, when you have persistently negative response to challenges, you get into a state of hyperarousal. So you are aware, alert all the time. And that can lead to problems in health and happiness.
All right. So that state of hyperarousal is when you're constantly in that mode of stress.
Even when it's unneeded.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
The peak is needed to get you into action, to move, to survive. But if you stay in that peak, too much of everything is not a good thing, right?
Yep.
Exactly. Okay, so the way you respond to stress can be very different, right? It's a combination, I hear, of my body responding to it, thoughts though, even though they go really fast, and I guess maybe also some emotional behavior is linked to that and comes into that as well. But after the break, we'll get more into this, what exactly are the stress responses. So stay tuned to hear how stress affects you.
Next Level Thinking.
It's hard to make big changes in life. The energy, time, and commitment are often too great. That's why many men in our community struggle with their health. The Department of Collective Prevention Services is encouraging all men in our community to take the positive step and get checked. Schedule your annual medical screening, practice a healthy lifestyle by eating healthy, exercise regularly, and practice safe sex consistently. This message is brought to you by Collective Prevention Services, a department of the Ministry of Health.
I was deceived about the nature of my job. I was abducted and sold. All my documents were confiscated and money was withheld from me. I was isolated and confined to one area. I was forced into prostitution. I was forced to lie to authorities and my family. Now that you know, what will you do?
You can help by calling the National Reporting Bureau on Human Trafficking at 542-1553 or send email to naticotip@gmail.com. Human trafficking and exploitation. Please report it.
You are listening to Next Level Thinking on St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9.
So listeners, before the break, we were discussing what stress is. Stress is the feeling when it all becomes too much for us and we don't feel capable enough or don't feel capable to deal with the demands placed on us. Now, in this segment, we will discuss how stress affects you. But before we go into that, we also want to discuss a little bit more about acute stress.
Yeah, acute stress. We already discussed some examples of acute stress. It's a common form of stress, actually. It comes from demands and pressures of the recent past and anticipated demands and pressures of the near future. So acute stress is thrilling and exciting in small doses, but too much is actually exhausting.
So like a roller coaster, that's good acute stress.
Yeah, the roller coaster is nice, right?
Short.
Just one ride.
If you like roller coasters.
Yeah, right.
But then you also have chronic stress. So acute stress and chronic stress are two different kinds of stress. Acute stress happens to you that moment, it's short, that's that peak that we talked about earlier. And chronic stress is that when you stay in that peak for a long time and you don't go down in your stress level. So that's a different kind of stress that we're talking about. Right. And maybe also good to later talk about what kind of influence that has on you, what kind of consequences.
And I guess the chronic stress is so for more things that stress you out continuously, things that stay in your life. Maybe like after the hurricane, your roof wasn't immediately fixed, so that stress follows you. The hurricane itself was an acute stressor. It was something that happened in that moment. Mm-hmm. But then the effects and the consequences afterwards, those were chronic, could cause for chronic stress.
Exactly, and the financial problems that people might have also related to the hurricane, that's a chronic one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so the acute stress, it is a common form of stress, but it can become a disorder when the symptoms you experience are like intrusion, memories, dreams, flashbacks. That could be related to a hurricane, for example. But a negative mood, feeling like time is slowing, inability to remember things, places you're going to avoid, arousal symptoms. When there is a very high peak of these kind of stressors and stress symptoms, and they last up into 1 month, it could be the case that we talk about acute stress disorder.
Okay, so what you're talking about as well is, I guess, are also the responses you actually get to stress. When certain responses affect you in a certain way in a certain time, it's a disorder, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about those stress responses. So the way we respond to stress.
Yeah. So back to the daily stress. One example, if someone is experiencing stress due to his school workload, for example, he or she may feel overwhelmed and unable to balance classes, assignments, exams, other activities. And without an outlet, this may lead to serious health issues like panic attacks, insomnia, overwhelming levels of anxiety, all kind of symptoms.
Yeah, you know, those headaches that you can develop or that you don't feel well. Or also it has an impact on your memory because, what did I want to say?
Memory and stress. Memory
and stress.
Exactly. You tend to forget when you're stressed out.
You tend to forget. So it really has an impact on not only your health, but also how you're doing cognitively seen. And you forget things when you're stressed out.
Yeah. They did a study on that. In this study, they gave participants medication that temporarily increased their stress hormone levels. Mm-hmm. And when they tested their memory after that, they saw that memory was impaired. So when stress hormone levels are very high, learning and remembering can be difficult.
So that's interesting what you said before, Stephanie, about that deadline. You do need that deadline to get your work done. But if the deadline is too tight or you have too much to do, it might even have a negative effect on the quality of your work.
Yeah, exactly. So a small amount of stress can be good. Yeah. But the bigger it gets, the more that increases, the more negative the effect it has on you.
Indeed. Balance is the key.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, what's also so interesting is the effect that it has on our health. The headache that you said before, or the not feeling well. But I also heard about a research that people who have high levels of stress or chronic stress have more often the cold or cold symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It has an effect on our bodily reaction to a virus. Mm-hmm. So it can decrease our body reacts. Is a decrease?
It can weaken us.
Weaken us,
Weaken our body.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the stress has an effect. It's like, even though we think stress is something that we can't touch, when we have it, it does touch our body. Let me put it like that. So it does have an effect on. Well, we just discussed the fight and flight and response, right?
Yeah.
So we said, okay, when there's acute stress, when there is an immediate stressor in near, your body gets ready to run, to freeze, to do whatever it needs to do. So my body gets activated. Now, if this stress is constantly high and this chronic stress, what we're talking about, my body stays in this activated state. So it has an effect on my veins, my heart, my lungs. Everything is in this ready state. And it takes energy from our body. It takes too much. So it weakens our body in the end.
There's a reason why we don't run a marathon each day, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Our body can't handle it.
No.
And we need to rest. And we need to rest from that stress as well. Definitely. So it's not just physical effects, though. We also have emotional effects. We can also feel maybe agitated, angry, just not the way we used to feel.
Easily startled, or you just need that tiny little thing that goes wrong, or someone says something wrong to you, and you respond in a way that is just out of rage.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Or that you start nail biting. Like,
The nerves. So you
The
have
nerves,
to, that energy in your body, you have to exert it somewhere. So, okay, then biting nails. Oh, yeah, definitely.
And what about stress eating?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting. You start sometimes to eat more. Some people start to eat less, that they don't feel like any appetite at all when they're stressed out. And some people are like, I gotta get the sugar. And I'm gonna get that bag of chips or the candy. And actually sometimes even alcohol use or substance use is also related to stress. Huh?
Yeah, some people use a substance to suppress that feeling of stress, that constant stress. It can be very demanding and taxing on your mind and body. So using something to relieve that stress, and we all know it doesn't.
No.
The stress is still there, but some people do resort to that as well.
So it's linked to higher risk behavior. That's how we call that, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So so you have those physical effects on your body. Some people go visit a doctor because they suffer I don't know, this headache or muscle ache or other things, other physical things. But it could be stress related. Then you have those emotional reactions and behavior. Those kind of symptoms, they can have an effect on other people as well, of course. I mean, in your behavior and the way you react emotionally to your partner, it could lead, hopefully not, but it could lead to relational problems.
So additional stressors.
Yeah. So that's when your stress level is increasing, actually.
And it's that you say that, Caroline, that you say additional stressors, but often we see that one stress brings on another stress, and we tend to sometimes get into this vicious cycle, stressing about, hey, I'm not feeling well, I notice I'm agitated, add stress again because you feel you're not yourself, or feeling certain aches in your bodies because you're always tense, adds another stress. Oh gosh, is there something wrong? Which adds to the stress. You often see that as well.
And so in that effect to other people, there was actually a research that noticed that there was an increase in obesity in children of parents who had a lot of stress, like financial or managing a single parent household. It does not only have an effect on yourself, but keep in mind there are people around you.
Right, it has an effect on others as well. So in this segment, we discussed how stress affects us mentally, physically, and emotionally. Stress seems to have a bigger effect on us than just the thoughts of being overwhelmed. It actually does something to our body, mind, and mind. Please stay with us as we will discuss what to do if you're stressed out after the break. So stay tuned.
Next Level Thinking.
I was deceived about the nature of my job. I was abducted and sold. All my documents were confiscated and money was withheld from me. I was isolated and confined to one area. I was forced into prostitution. I was forced to lie to authorities and my family. Now that you know, what will you do?
You can help by calling the National Reporting Bureau on Human Trafficking at 542-1553 or send email to naticotip@gmail.com. Human trafficking and exploitation. Please report it.
You are listening to Next Level Thinking on St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9.
Welcome back, listeners, to Next Level Thinking. I'm your host, Stephanie Hassett, and I have Caroline and Sana with me here today. For those who are just tuning in, we are discussing stress today. What types of stress are there and how do they affect us? So we've discussed that stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed and not feeling able to deal with your own or other people's expectations. And how well we deal with stress differs depending on our former experiences, personalities, and many other factors. But what we do know is that it affects us emotionally, mentally, and physically. And to what extent differs between individuals. In this third segment, we will discuss what you can do to minimize the effects the stress has on you, as stress in itself is a part of life and it's hard to avoid.
So what to do when we are experiencing stress?
Yeah. Well, don't say yes to stress.
No, but we all experience stress. It's very normal to have stress. To
So
feel
sometimes
stressed
say
out.
yes to stress.
Yeah, exactly. But there are different methods, I guess.
Yeah.
And everyone has different ways to calm themselves down. And
Well, is there a stress pill?
That would be nice, huh?
right.
Yeah, that is a question actually I hear a lot when I'm at work and I see clients and they sit the other end of the table and they ask me...
Not on the
like,
couch?
No, not on the couch. I don't have a couch. Let that be clear. Active mode, please. No, they sit there at the other end of the table and they ask me like, okay, can you please solve my stress? Yeah, well, that would be great if I had a magic stick or a pill, but I'm not a doctor. But yeah, pills, medicine, it is something that people think would be a great solution to their problems. Actually, doctors will not usually prescribe medication for coping with stress unless the patient has an underlying illness such as depression or a type of anxiety. In that case, the doctor is treating a mental illness and not the stress. So
how can we get rid of this stress?
Management.
Stress
That is
management.
Stress management. That's the key word. I
Right.
think we have to look into like, okay, but what does that then entail?
Exactly. So I guess it's partly, right, trying to remove that stressor or change a routine or making sure that that stressor affects us less. Right.
I think step one is realizing
Yeah.
that stress affects you and how it affects you so that you can start to recognize like, hey, I'm starting to get stressed out and am I still in the right level?
So instead of going to the doctor because you have that headache, what do you have to do?
Like look into, hey, maybe is stress affecting me at this moment? Is that leading to my headache? Try to make the connection between the physical symptoms that you could experience and the pressure that you are facing with at this moment. And look out for physical warnings. Like, we mentioned that before the break, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that your physique, so maybe tension on your shoulders, back pains, etc., that you mind those as well. Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that you can notice the symptoms. So
And then maybe take that step back.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's step one. So recognizing.
Okay, and then step 2, identifying the causes. So where is it coming from? What is stressing me out?
And when you know that, what we would like to do is solve the problem that is causing the stress.
Yeah.
But we have like 3 categories of possible reasons for stress. One is those with a practical solution. So it is actually something that you can solve.
So that flat tire, I can fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
you did,
something-
right?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we also have problems that will get better given time.
Yeah.
That you have to have some patience for.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Well, I guess when I have a deadline, right, that can stress me out. But I know eventually I'll reach that deadline, and then the stress will go. I'll give it time. I know what to do, and it's over after that.
And you know, sometimes there are certain problems when you wait and don't act on it.
They will go away.
Yeah, they will go away, or someone else will solve them. Is that the right way to solve the problem?
For sometimes.
To not take that responsibility on you. And you're like, if I leave it there, someone else might pick it up.
Give someone else the stage,
Maybe you stress out somebody else, but hey.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, but sometimes we tend to worry before something really happens.
Yeah.
We tend to look into the future and we want to plan everything and predict everything. And sometimes we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
There is a third category, and the third category is about problems we cannot solve. And we also tend to worry about things that we can solve and stress about that.
Does it help?
No.
Exactly. No.
I always talk about the circle of influence, and it might sometimes be good to visualize that for yourself. You're in a circle, and you have a small circle around you and a bigger circle around you. And in the small circle, those are things that you can influence. And if you focus too much on the circle outside of you, what you cannot influence, all your energy will drain and will go away. So look into what you can influence and what you can't. And if you cannot influence it or change the situation, it is what it is, then maybe you have to accept it or let go.
The third part, what we have to do in managing our stress is review your lifestyle. Are you taking on too much? Things that can be handed over? Balance, again, is the key. And healthy lifestyle actually is a topic that we will discuss in a separate episode of Next Level Thinking as well.
Right, but it does help certain healthy lifestyles, certain things.
But shortly, what does it mean? What is healthy? Is that green eating?
No, I don't think it's green eating. I think it's balancing out your life, knowing what gives you energy, what takes away energy. So, because we were saying, okay, review your lifestyle. But let's say you exercise every night. That's something that gives you energy and you recharges you and makes you ready for the next day. Don't take that out of your program. But if it's something that tires you out and it's too much of a struggle, review it. See if you maybe can do 3 times, 2 times a week. Still healthy, still good exercise, but it's in better balance with your lifestyle.
What does help you guys to de-stress?
Well, I like to go for a motorbike ride.
Oh, that would stress me out.
Well, actually, at the beginning, it does stress me out because I'm not a very, very experienced biker. But at the end of a bike ride, I feel like, whew,
Good.
Yeah, I feel good. Wow. And something completely different, I crochet.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Therapeutic.
Yeah, but I can imagine. I'm also a person, I love to be busy with my hands, so I don't have to think. So I like to either paint, or I always find something to do in my house, like paint a room or a wall. I did the kitchen cabinets 2 weeks ago, just because I was like, okay, let me do something completely different and clear out my mind and not think about all the important stressful stuff.
Deadlines.
And for me, it also helps to make dinner for friends, or to listen to music, or have that talk and that laugh and just unwind.
Good company.
Good company.
No, definitely.
That helps a lot for me.
Definitely. So I guess our tip for people is find your own de-stressor. Find something that can help you wind down a little bit after a stressful day or a stressful week or a stressful month. Make sure that you have people around you who can distract you sometimes. I think distraction is one of the best things to help with stress. But also identify what it is. Try to listen to your own body and review your own lifestyle. So what in this segment, we discussed what you can do to minimize the effect stress has on you. Stress is a part of life, and we'll all experience stress, but we can make its effect as small as possible by doing things to distress ourselves. So please stay with us. After the break, we'll discuss what to do if you suffer from serious issues that may be difficult to face alone and they are affecting your daily life. Stay tuned.
Next Level